All right, bro. First and foremost, Daniel Johnson, I appreciate you for coming onto the podcast. The number one soccer podcast in the world. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. um, but no, seriously though, bro, I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you taking the time. Um, so first and foremost, my thing here on the podcast is I don't want this to be the general chit chat. Like, oh, just using, we got Daniel Johnson on the podcast. Let's ask him some about his journey and let's ask him about all this stuff. I want to dive in a little bit deeper and give some real context to, especially with you, because we're sort of in the same boat. People ask me all the time, like, who do I play for? Right. And I'm like, right now, I don't play for anyone because I've seen the other side of the curtain, and it's not something that I want to be a part of right now. I'm only 26, so who knows what's going to happen in the future. However, I've been done wrong in this game, and I would love to I'm going to get your opinion on it in a second. But real quick, tell everyone what you're up to, what you're doing, and we'll get off to a start. We'll get that off the ball rolling.
Damn. I'm sort of doing a couple different things.
Yeah.
This is my first year out of the game, so to speak. It was a combination of many different things, which had to do with not having an option, all of which had to do with the way I was feeling about the game. I actually had to negotiate out of a 2-year contract I'd signed. So that was not a fun situation. Right. But right now I am the US marketing and customer relationship manager for an AI analysis and video data recording platform purely based in soccer called BPro. I jumped into that in February. I am bootstrapping money on the side and doing everything I can to launch a contemporary menswear label. I work with my group of friends, and I guess you'd call it a collective back in Atlanta, to continue to push Kit Boys.
Yep.
Which is a streetwear label that fuses the culture of that realm with soccer.
Yeah.
I am dad of 2 big ass greyhounds. Honestly, man, I'm just for the first time really enjoying a year to its fullest extent, like not missing out on birthdays, not missing out on things that I want to be a part of, not pushing time aside on things that I want to work on and things that I want to put into, or I want to put my passion into.
Right.
So yeah, there's a couple things on my plate. But I guess that's most of what I'm up to right now. That fills most of my days.
Yeah. Bro, so obviously there's a ton there, right? So let's get into it. What are your feelings about soccer right now? How do you feel towards the game of soccer? Because I know for me right now, I'm in it, but I'm not in it. Like I'm very unattached to, like, Ronaldo scored a bike the other day, and I'm like that's cool. I saw it, thought it was great, and I moved on with my life. It doesn't consume my life like it used to, but I'm very much in it. That's the whole business that I'm in right now, is soccer. However, it's very, my perspective has changed. My perspective has changed. Where are you? Where are you right now?
I feel like we're in a similar place. I mean, I don't watch. I'll catch up on like how West Ham or like how the Fire or how Birmingham Legion have done. And that's like the extent of it, really. I don't want to say I hate the game. Like, it's given me so much. I do love soccer. I would say I'm really happy that right now, for my personal growth and health, that I'm not playing. Yeah. People don't oftentimes realize that my first professional contract came at 16, and I've been in that environment since I was 13, having left home. It's just been track of 10 years, 5 officially as a pro, but like
Right.
bar visa issues like that would have added 2 years onto the life cycle. And it's like,
Right.
um, you become savvy and you start to be in situations where, like you said, you see the other side of the curtain,
Right.
and like there's a lot of good people in soccer. And I was really fortunate my last year in Birmingham to have some really, really great people, that were really, really accepting. I had a really great year to sort of final out my career, but
Right.
I couldn't, and I had signed a 2-year deal, and I couldn't recover from some of the things I'd experienced previously, um, both overseas and with the fire.
Yeah.
I was just sort of in a hole, um, in regards to the game. And I
Yeah.
just was not, the reason I'd continue to play was like, and you and I both experienced this. We were young and everyone was like, you're really good. And I'm like, okay, it's like I really couldn't care less. Like I love to play, so I'm just gonna keep playing. And then it just so happened that because of that, I progressed skill wise into national camps and then into the professional realm. And that like, but it was always because like the most joy is playing. And when that went away like completely, it was like, dude, let me take stock here. Let me look.
Right.
Um, because that side of the game where you're grinding it out, um, and you're probably city to city for a few years, if not the rest of your career, um, that's a rough one, man.
Bro, okay, so I've already taken notes and I feel like we could have 4 more podcasts after this, but let me just go off what you just said just now. And for anyone listening to this, I will have DJ's story in the show notes because I don't want to go over this actual story. I want to get into it. I want to like actually tell people because there's so many podcasts out there now about the pro journey and stuff like that. You don't need any more of the pro journey. What you need to know, and this is how it goes. I grew up. I wasn't the best one on my team, or I was the best one on my team. I ended up progressing. I had to sacrifice some things and I made it. Okay. But what you don't realize is that for me, and I didn't realize how similar our stories were, but for me, I got taken advantage of
Mm-hmm.
in the game of soccer because it was my passion and it was my love for the game that people used that against me and
Right.
told me, Andrew, we're not going to pay you this month. And I'm like, well, I have a fiance, I have bills to pay, but yeah, but you're lucky enough to be playing the game that you love. You should
Yeah.
be grateful. You should be thankful. Guys, this is the reality of the situation. And I know I'm lucky because I know some people in Europe and other countries who they don't pay them and they don't even care. Like they don't care. They don't
Yeah. They
even
don't even
like
address it.
there's no law against it. Here in
Yeah. No.
America, at least I at least had a little bit of back. I could at least push back a little bit. I had to sell my car to pay for the bills. So it's one of those things where it's like, I want to ask you, where's the line between you have to sacrifice for your dream, you have to give up certain things to live for this dream, and then when do you get taken? When does it become you're taking advantage of me?
Man, that's tough. The line is different for everybody. You know what
Right.
I mean? I mean, you hear like recently the one that I can think of is like Aaron Lennon, who sort of came out of the game and came back, um, noted to deal with issues related to this side of the game.
Right.
Um, I feel like it's a little bit more manageable when you're making
True.
20 grand a week, but like that's a different conversation.
Right.
The line is different for everybody, man. I mean, for me personally, um, my situation was ups and downs, from overseas to then Chicago, which was for me the lowest point in
Yeah.
my career that really spurned things into thinking the way that I was thinking.
Right.
But I think you have to draw that line for yourself, because like I still get the kids, um, who say to me like, I don't understand, like, or like, I watched you last season, you're X, Y, and Z, like, and I'm like, it didn't have anything to do with like ability. You have to put a line in the sand when it comes to like your growth as a person
Yep.
or who you are and like where you see things going in your life. Like, do you, and it's different for everybody, because I know guys who are super happy who play until 30 and they don't have much of anything except for like a car, and like they've been in
Right.
8 different cities, and like, but they're super happy. Like, that's brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
that's their line. They're like, I love this dream. And then I get people who say to me like, you stopped the chase, like you gave up, and like,
Yeah.
but I don't feel I gave up, because I reached a point where I ticked the box of a lot of things I wrote down when I was a kid,
Exactly.
and I
Exactly.
was like, okay, you know, for me personally, I had to like remove ego and not look at it from like, how's everybody else looking at this, but like, how am
Exactly.
I gonna look at this when I'm 35? And I'm saying, okay, I'm so glad I made this decision earlier. Like, that was my line, because I wanted to get my ducks in a row, because I knew there were other things that I cared about at
Yep.
this point in my life way more than soccer. Um, but like, some people, dude, I've seen grind it out. There's an unprecedented amount of kids stepping away from the game this year
Yep.
because of difficulties with like coronavirus and uncertainty, and them realizing it's not what they want it to be. So like, I don't want to like throw names out, because I know a few of them are yet to like go to social media with it or whatever.
Right.
But like, this start of off season alone, which is, you know, has only been like not even shy of a month,
Right.
I've talked to like 6 kids on FaceTime, and some of them I don't even really know that well, who like reached out and were like trying to get guidance about the transition.
Right.
You know, 3-4 years after their professional career started. And for them, that's their line. Like, they've seen it, they've experienced it. And for other people, it continues to go, and they chase it as long as they feel they can. And like, that's more power to you. You know what I mean?
100%. And so, I mean, again, there's a lot in there. Basically, for me, I think it comes down to a little bit like, how much are you willing to take, right? And what I mean by that, and you put it in a great way, that some people love the idea of, no money, but I have a car and I get to see all these countries, or I get to see all these countries, all these states, all these different whatever. They see it as an experience. So I wouldn't tell them how much can you take, because for them it's positive. It's a
Yeah.
positive environment.
And
However,
I want to, before you go clear on that, I
yeah,
want to talk about, I'm not speaking on the US. I actually made more money in the USL than I did in the MLS.
right,
And I'm speaking on MLS guys who are doing this. Like,
yeah,
the MLS is not retirement money. Like, I'm speaking on people that I've talked to who are, 29, 30,
yeah,
who have had perennial careers in the MLS that are experiencing this. So like, if I want to be clear, especially in this country, we're not speaking like NPSL or like League
right,
One. Like, this is the
right.
situation.
And again, peeking behind that curtain and seeing. Also, there's a lot of, and there's other podcasts out for this of talking about the disparity in pay and all this stuff. Like, you can go check that out if you want to like actually talk about that stuff. I'm trying to get into the mind of you, a player who's played at the MLS, played in England, places that people want to go, right? Like, places that people are literally dedicating their lives to get to where you were, right? And you did as well. So my biggest thing now, and I'll talk about this another time as well, more in depth, but the idea that, and you see this Pele quote all the time, soccer's not a matter of life and death. It's more than that. For me, looking inside and now coming back out, I don't think it is. I honestly don't think it's a matter of life and death for me. I think it's very important. It's a very good tool. It's something that we can all rally around. It's at some points it's a religion. 100%. There are times when it's everything. It's a drug. It's a religion. It's everything. And I agree with that 100%. But there are things, and I'm talking to someone right now, that there is something out there that you have just as much passion for that you do as soccer. And I think both of us are seeing that with you, with, the clothing brand and spending time with your family and your greyhounds. For me, I realize that I love mentoring kids. I love sitting down with a kid and changing their perspective on something based on my experience. And that's what I love doing. That's why I'm doing this. But just talk about that. I feel like it's a huge miscommunication that, like, I swear parents joke about this kind of stuff, but I talk to kids all the time who say, I've dedicated my whole life to this. I've left home. I'm living by myself in an apartment I can't afford and all this stuff. And I'm like, if that's what you want, going back to the MLS guys, if that's what you want, great. I'm not speaking to you. But if you're struggling and you don't know whether or not you want to do this anymore, it's not life and death. There are other things out there that you are passionate about. And that's real talk. Cause you could go on to another podcast and they say, dedicate your whole life. Don't have a plan B, plan A, go all in and die. Like all that stuff. And whatever works. But I'm telling you, there's another side. And I'm speaking to a guy that at a young age, I looked up to you. I saw you doing things. I wanted to do them, all that stuff. And now you're not playing the game. And you're not apologetic about it. You're not even looking back with regret or remorse that you made the decision. So my question to you is soccer really life and death?
I don't know, man. Like, obviously for us, it wasn't like,
right.
And there were points where you definitely feel like it is. Like,
yeah,
there are points where you don't make the match day squad for, the MLS Cup or the MLS playoff game. And you're like, my life is over. Like,
right.
We're obviously in a position of privilege where like, it wasn't life or death for us. There's situations and like,
of course,
where kids make it out and their vehicle is soccer. And like,
you're
that's
right.
brilliant.
You're right.
I love that aspect of the game, but like for us and a lot of kids playing in the United States who are from the United States and like, there was a path for them that was, academy and then maybe whatever, like maybe college and then you get drafted or you get a chance in the USL and like, it's not necessarily like if you don't make it, everything is over.
Right.
Like you most likely,
yeah.
And this isn't like be all end all. I'm just like speaking to your question. Like you most likely have a college degree or something.
No, that's good. That's good distinction for sure. Because there are people out there who in Africa, Asia, maybe,
even here,
even here, yeah, 100%. But you even saw Heung-min Son for Tottenham. If he didn't win that game, he was going to the army,
to the military, man. So yeah, stuff like that. There's
100%,
with
100%.
Like what you put into it, there can be things that are life or death. Like your job at X corporation in your cubicle like could be life or death for you because like you missed that paycheck, your kids not eat. Like there's and that's it's down again to perspective and like. But overall, like for me, I don't think it is, and I've seen it consume people who treat it as such and like
don't need to.
Coaches that have gone through divorce lose their family like because they can't pry themselves away from the field and they're always traveling and like this was my mentality, and it was actually Alan Gordon at the Fire who was 37 and still playing the game. It was just an absolute legend and probably the best guy I've ever had in the locker room. Who was the first person to really start saying to me like, hey, you can do other stuff. He's like, I wish I retired 8 years ago, but I didn't. And now I'm stuck in the hamster wheel. Like, he's like, if you're feeling like this and you think that you can go and do something else and be great at it and like do it, like what's stopping you? Like a comment on Instagram or someone saying like, he didn't make it the way it's supposed to be. It's like, that's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And it's
so for me, my biggest thing with this is obviously to go deep, but also to go practical. What are some things that you think someone should do in order to realize, do I really want this?
I mean, you've got to want like, this is like years after I'd been playing pro. So like to make it and then stay is one thing. Like to just make it, you've got to be okay with missing. And this is like, of course, there's real things happening in the world, but like in the context of our conversation, like you got to be okay with missing at its simplest, like sort of form, like parties and stuff with your friends. But you got to, more than that, you got to be okay with holidays away from your family. You have to start being okay with
homesick,
like 6 a.m. wake up.
Yeah.
Training, hurting, training some more, being injured, being isolated. Like there's a lot of things you got to deal with on that path. And like gotta be okay with that. And then when you feel like you make it and it's like, man, I went through all that and I made it, you got to double down because
Yep.
it gets worse.
Yep.
You have to be even more okay with being away from your family. And now you maybe have a wife or a fiance and you got to be okay. Like there's
With that, that's I remember distinctly when I was about 15 years old, I was like, I can't wait to go pro so I can just play soccer all day. And it's like, that's such a, oh my goodness, that's so naive to think, because literally that's like me saying, oh, I can't wait to get out of school so I can work all day. And like, yes, maybe it's something you like doing, but literally 65%, 70% of the time, it's going to be stuff you don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
Going to media events when you've just had, it's preseason, you just had double day, and now you have to go to some media event and give an interview to some guy who's probably going to switch up your words probably. And then you have to, then you have to come back and then have, dinner with your girlfriend or fiance or whatever. Like it's not just playing soccer.
Yeah.
And honestly, shout out to, the top pros in at Arsenal and United and the top levels. They make it look easy from the outside. And I'm sure it's the media department killing it, but it's like, they look like it's easy. It is not easy. It is not easy. Like it's not all soccer. You even hear Conor McGregor talking about it. He's like, if I just had the fight, I would be fighting 6 times a year. But there's so much more to it. There's so much more, and it's so draining that there's a reason why pros are pros and amateurs are amateurs. It's way harder to be a pro. It is way harder. Yeah. That jump is almost too big, in my opinion. It's a huge jump, especially here in America, from college to pro. It's a huge jump. And so I just remember that big time. Like, I was like, oh, I can't wait to play soccer. And I know a lot of kids are like that. I just want to go pro, and then I'll be, I'll be able to train. And it's very it's very normal. But I want to go back to what you said about like the idea of especially Alan Gordon saying that he wished he's like, he's too deep in it now. I just heard this thing about like a sunken investment. So when someone invests, $1 million into something, they're obviously hoping that it does well so much that when they start losing money, then they start putting more in because they're like, I've already invested so much. And so I think that perspective that you said before about there are kids in other places that have it way worse that have to make it.
Yeah.
So the idea that I'm already in it, if you're already in it and you're listening to this and you're 32 years old and you're playing professional soccer, living paycheck to paycheck, and you don't want to do it anymore, just like, you have to make a plan to get out of there because, and I want to talk to you about this. Like, what's the price for your happiness? There can't be a price for your happiness. At the end of all this, what is the point if you're not happy? What is the point? Yeah. So I know we've talked about this a little bit. Talk to me about that and like how again, basically how to reevaluate your situation, but where does happiness fall into it? How much is it worth? What?
I mean, for it was everything at one point, wanting to first thinking that I wanted to enjoy the game again. Like, but I realized even like it got to the point where playing week in, week out, being one of the leaders on the team, like that didn't put that fire back into me. So I was like, damn, what is it? And then you realize it's things that you're looking at that are happening in the world that you want to be a part of, that you're consistently missing. And then it's like, when it comes out to what you're saying, like happiness is everything. Cause it's like, if you're happy playing soccer and doing this and being on the hamster wheel and grinding, like do it. Like I thoroughly, like my whole heart encourage you to do that because like, do it. But if you're not, there's no need to stay in it. And like, it's not even like I had some grand plan to get out.
Right.
I went into I had a couple things sort of in place where I went into my end of year meeting and it started like, we'll keep this quick because we know you're coming back. And I had to be like, well, if I got this opportunity, I'm not sure if I'm coming back. Like we need to really speak.
But
And
real,
those,
real quick, that just speaks to the perspective of soccer in general, especially in the US, but I think just anywhere in the world, that one, they look at it as, this is our lives. Like, how could you
yeah,
possibly quit? You're only 24 at the time. Or 23 at the time. How could you quit? You have your whole career
yeah,
ahead of you. But it's like, but how do you know that this is what I want anymore? That,
yeah,
and then also it's the money thing. We're paying your bills. Okay,
yeah,
but what if I said keep the money? I don't want the money if I'm not
right,
going to be happy.
yeah. I mean,
It just
it's
speaks to the perspective of not just your
how
coach,
people
but
look at it.
99.9% of the US, I know for a fact, the athletic directors, or not the athletic directors, but the GMs,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
the presidents and all of them, they're like, we pay your bills. And I'm like, yeah, but right now, but do you know who I am? I could literally do whatever I want outside of soccer because
Yeah, and you
I believe in myself, and I know, and I've set these other things up for this moment, that if I'm not happy,
yeah,
I can step out.
and you can. And like side note, like full credit to the staff at Legion,
Yeah,
who were like more than supportive, like
right,
more than I could have asked for. Like the transition was made because of them and like their
right,
guidance, both the coach and the GM. If you want to know who they are, like Google it, but
right.
they're like we're incredible. So I don't want to make it like
No,
about that. It's just more me and um yeah, going back, it's like that happiness, it's got to be everything for you because you like when you were a kid you probably had a coach that like played in the MLS. He was like
yep,
maybe 40, 45, and like nobody knew or cared,
right, right,
you know, like in like uh guy I used to share the locker room with, who's an MLS pros, like used to say, in you know 5 years I'm gonna tell my kid I started every game. In 10 years I'm gonna tell my kid I scored 50 goals. And in
that's
another
huge.
five
Yeah,
years I'm gonna tell him I started in the World Cup final. And like
right,
it's not gonna make a difference. And it's true, man. Like you got to look at it as a blip in this grand scheme of life, where like your career really only lasts between like 27 and 32 if you're really lucky, like to age. But that's only like between 5 and 10 years
right,
more for those who like really take care and do well. And
right,
but like you look back, it's what is 5 years? That's your time in college. Like
right.
I can barely pinpoint my time in college, dude, and I'm only 5 years out of it.
Yeah,
Like um
crazy.
yeah, you're gonna get to a point where you look back and you're like, I'm happy I've got my support system and the person I love or something like that. And like look back on and be like, yeah, I'm in a much better place. Like I have I have a support system that helped me get out of it, like both Legion, um, my family, which were kind of broken in between, and like my girlfriend, who was like the first person to be like, hey, you're telling me every week like you're miserable.
Right. So change
You
it.
don't have to. And she wasn't like stop, or
Right.
it was just like, you
You're
don't
you're
have to.
you're telling me, you're telling me you're unhappy.
Yeah.
It's not like, yo, you need to stop it. You're telling me you're unhappy. And so that brings me to my next question, is basically like, what are you doing now? Like, what are you doing now to leave a legacy for later? Because that's basically what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's true.
We're basically talking about, at the end of all this, what are you going to be able basically to give or to tell your kids that they're going to like they're going to be able to grasp and be like, oh wow, my dad was this, or
Right.
so what are you doing now to leave a legacy for that?
Um, it's tough. Like I don't want to seem like because I made this decision, I'm operating on like some higher level
Right,
and I'm like
right,
so conscious, because like I still struggle with a lot of stuff in my daily life
for
where
sure.
like my organization is not where it should be. My
Real
community.
quick, and I apologize to cut you off.
No, no.
But with regards to that, what would you say? Like, what would you say to a kid right now who is in the pro game right now, or what would you say to DJ when he was playing, and say like, um, like you should be thinking about these things. Like, what would you say to a young kid right now and say, you should be thinking about these things right now? Like
Yeah.
I'm not like, I want to make it clear that we're not saying quit soccer. I'm not saying quit.
Yeah.
I'm saying just have a perspective. What would you say to
Yeah.
a kid
Because
right now?
it's things I still struggle with now. I wish I'd gone back and said, like, don't let your entire schedule revolve around what the like director of soccer ops is giving to you every week.
Right.
Like, don't let that be your whole infrastructure. Don't let your entire being form around the fact that you are a soccer player, and like let that guide all of your relationships in life. And like whether they're surface or whether they're deep, don't predicate them on the fact that like you're a soccer player first. Like figure who you are first, and like
Exactly.
um,
Like I always say, if I hadn't stopped playing, there are things in my life that I would have been able to pave over with soccer. So like
yeah.
right now, like figure out what you're paving over. Like for example, like relationships in general. I was
Mm-hmm.
paving over relationships. I was not in a good place mentally to be in a relationship. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when I stopped
I was
playing,
what you're saying.
then now that I'm in a relationship with my girlfriend, now fiance, that I didn't know that I wasn't good at that.
Yeah.
So then because I was just playing and I enjoyed it and nothing, hanging out with the boys all the time and stuff like that. I didn't know I was good at relationships. Money is another thing. I didn't realize I wasn't good at money because the club was paying for everything.
Yeah. That's the same
So,
way.
so I strongly advise you, if you continue playing the game and you love the game and stuff like that, keep playing, play until you're 50 if you can. But you got to be finding out, just like they
Think
just
about
saying,
these
just like you're
things.
saying, you got to figure out who you are, your
Yeah.
shortcomings, things you have to work on, and figure those out and work on those on the side, right?
Yeah.
Work on those things on the side, read books, all that stuff. We're not saying put soccer away and like figure all this stuff out. No, do it while you're in the game. So then when you leave the game, the transition is very smooth.
Exactly. And like to segue that into what you'd been asking like previously, it's what when I said like I'm not operating on some higher power, like I
Right.
wish I told myself like focus on your ability to communicate like
Yeah.
outside of just letting it be dictated by your travel schedule. Like
Right.
focus on X, Y, and Z, like your ability to handle money, like your ability to I always thought I am a ridiculously hard worker because it all centered around how hard I worked at soccer.
Right.
Like up at 6 training, back at 10 in the gym, another session at Toka when I'm home, like so on and so forth. And then I realized like when I don't have that
That's the easy work, the
infrastructure to
structure.
push me, then I am not so great at putting myself and getting my head down at other things and
Right.
like really sitting down and like pushing through stuff. And like
Right.
that's something I still struggle with now. It's something I work on. My
So
communication, something I wish I worked on more. Like there's so many things that if you're still super happy playing soccer, you're gonna come out of it and be like lost in the world.
yeah.
You gotta start thinking about them. And I wish I had, and I'm still learning like a lot.
So I want to get in this point real quick, and then I want to ask you one final question. But the one thing I want to communicate right now is that the skills that you are learning in soccer right now, see them as skills. Don't see them as related to soccer, because you will be able to use those skills for other things. For me,
That's a really good point.
I was, in my opinion, and I've said this many times, and you can ask some of my teammates, in high school, I was the hardest working player in the country here in the US, without a doubt. I now have been able to tap into that hard work, that determination, that focus, that ability to wake up early, do stuff that people don't want to do. I've been able to harness that into something else because I saw it as a skill of hard work. I didn't see it as a hard work, like I only work hard in soccer.
Yeah.
I've been able to tap into that, into my old self, and work that hard again in every aspect of my life. And I've been able to see many different, many flowers have bloomed out of that. Right. So I've done that.
And you've done
Yeah.
it really well, man. I mean, you've grown as a coach and
Yeah.
your online presence as a video analyst coach. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think people realize the time it takes to go from where you were at to like now just 1,000 people, and we're
Right.
in the world of like viral bullshit. But like
Right.
to gain 1,000 followers is like real followers that are
Right.
interacting and
Very
like
organic,
are paying
bro.
you
Yeah.
to work
Yeah.
is like is hard, dude.
Right. 100%, bro. And yes, people don't understand that. And that's why when they, and I talk about this every single podcast, and I don't know, but I always talk about the fake football pages that we all see, right? There's hundreds out there now that you've never seen their face. You've never seen the face of the person, but you're dedicating your trainings to this guy, and you're paying this money to this guy who you've never seen. For me, I'm getting my face out there. I'm doing free stuff, Instagram lives, webinars, all this stuff for people, not for notoriety or anything like that, but to actually give back, because that's what makes me happy. So in a way, I'm actually doing it for myself, right? So it's like one of those things where it is very, very difficult, but I don't see it as work at all. Like I was telling my fiance today, like I don't necessarily like going to sleep anymore. I'd rather stay awake and work on this. And once you get to a place like that, and I was that way in soccer as well. I didn't want to go to sleep. I wanted to work again. I wanted to get back at training. I loved training. And so again, going back to you need to develop skills in soccer that yes, help you in soccer, but don't look at them as exclusively soccer.
Yeah.
They're skills for life. And
100%.
start cultivating skills for life. How to communicate with a teammate. That's how you communicate in a relationship. That's how you communicate with, partners if you're in business or whatever it is. Hard work, not giving up, dedication, commitment, all those different things. Like get those skills down. Write a list of all the skills you think you need in soccer. Write them down and work on those every single day. Read books, ask help, get coaching, all that stuff. Right? Being coachable is another thing. Like be coachable in life.
In all
be
areas,
coachable in life. When someone tells you to do something, when your mom tells you to do something, listen, understand, try to apply it. That's being coachable. That's the same as in soccer.
It's so applicable.
So my last question, what would you like your legacy to be? And basically what lessons do you want to leave for people when you're gone, whether it's your kids, whether it's people who look you up, like what do you want your legacy to be?
I feel like people that look me up that'll be soccer at some point,
right?
Maybe a successful menswear brand. Like I don't
know. Do you want to erase? Not necessarily erase, but do you want to be less known as the soccer player?
No, not at all. I'm really proud about what I did.
Yeah, for sure.
But like that's for me, whatever. I am much more concerned with like the people I interact with on a daily basis, saying like you could go to DJ, he'd give you everything.
Yeah.
He'd help you with a problem, he'd drop everything. He's a giver. He's present and mindful, and like you're around him and he makes you feel like you're around him. And like those are things that I say I want to leave that legacy because I struggle with them now. Like those are things that now are weaknesses for me that are really important to me that I want to make a strength as I get older and as I mature. Because like, how many friends have you made across the country,
right?
Like playing soccer who were great friends, and like you struggle to keep up, and like you want to make sure that you keep your network and let people know you care about them. And then in home, like I want the people around me, that I want my girlfriend that I live with to know that like I'm mindful and present.
Right.
And same thing with my friends that are around and my kids in the future. Like I want them to, like, all of that is more important than my legacy. And I say that because I want these things that I struggle with to be about. And I don't think I really care all too much about like a tangible legacy. Like it's a huge bonus if like I was successful at something, if I had publications about me for the business on the fashion side, which is like a goal. People look back and talk in the future about, maybe I was one of the best teammates they had, one of the best players they played with, which had come across my desk a couple times, like whatever. It's cool, but like it's not so much of a legacy.
Right. But it is. No, but it is. It is. And this is what I'm getting from this. And this is actually super big time for me that I'm just getting an epiphany about from you saying that is when you think about legacy, when I think about legacy, I think, because I say with this podcast, with this business, I want to affect 1 million players. That means, thank you, Andrew, so much. You really changed my perspective on the game and it's helped me. That's it. Right? That's the start. Then it's going to be 10, whatever. But that's what I think of. But what you're saying, legacy is the people that you see every single day saying good things about you, your reputation, right? And it's the things that they tell people, if you need something, ask Deej. Deej has it.
Yeah.
Deej he'll take care of you, right? I want people to say, go see Andrew. He actually will take interest in your situation and actually help you with your goals. Right. So that's what I'm hearing. And that's actually big time for me. That's a part of legacy. I think of that as, yes, I think of that as reputation, obviously, and all that stuff. But can you be a guy or girl that operates on a certain set of principles that will transcend you and will live on past you?
100%.
And that could be in your kids. That could be in your loved ones, where they're like, oh, wow, I really see that DJ is really like this. I should probably be more like that. And then they're like that. And I heard the other day that that's what karma is. Karma is not, I flicked someone off, so then the next day $50 came out of my bank account for no reason. Like, that's not necessarily karma. Karma to me is like, I do something good for this person, that person does something good for them, and them, and them, and them. It goes all the way around. And then at some point, out of nowhere, some person that I helped through that person now comes and helps me, or whatever. Yeah. Or you help someone, and then that person comes and helps me, and then I help someone else. Like, it just goes around. And like, that's how you make the world a better place. And that's how you leave a real legacy.
It's true. That's big time.
Bro, I appreciate you coming on. Huge insight. And this is definitely a podcast I really wanted to do because, we've talked many times about like mental health and about there's more to the game than just go and let's learn how to do step overs, and there's way more to the game than that. That's part of it, but there's way more to the game than that. And you have to, and also just a real quick 1 minute to like parents and coaches, like, you have to realize what you're teaching these kids. Like, yes, we should teach them hard work. We should teach them perseverance and dedication and stuff like that. But you should also teach them to be, to be respectful, to be, players of, for me, players of perspective, players that understand that, yes, this game is life or death. However, when the game's over, good job. Tomorrow, we're back on training. It's the next day. Like, that's perspective. Yes, this is the end. This is a big moment. We should go out and try to win. But if we don't win, if we give our best and we don't win, the sun will still come up tomorrow. You have school, you have friends. Like, this is not the end all be all. You don't have, like, this is another thing, bro. And you don't have to be a pro. Okay. You don't have to go pro. The amount of kids who've come up to me and said, and kids that I know and have said, I want to be a pro, coach. And I'm like, I don't know if you do. I don't really know if you do. And that's why I wanted to make this podcast, is to tell people I wanted to show them behind the curtain as well.
Yeah, you feel like you're supposed to say that because you're in it, and that's the
your boy said it. Your boy that you've been with since you were 4 years old says, I want to be a pro, and he got into the national team once, and you're like, well, I'm just as good as him. I should be a pro. But if you don't want to be a pro, and I want to make it okay for players to say, I want to get my college paid for by soccer, and that's all I want. I want to be a doctor.
And be okay with that being the reason why you're working so hard at it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You can put as much as this kid who went and was drafted into it because you want to get into college, and then use that to go get your master's in business and go make $200,000 out of college doing that, and have a background of a collegiate athlete. Like, in the United States, that should be really, really valuable. And it should be okay for you to say, like, why are you doing this? I work so hard at soccer because I wanted to pay for my education.
Right.
Amazing. Like, I work so hard at soccer because I want to make my family proud by being the first person that went to college. Like, whether that's Duke, whatever it is, like, do that. It doesn't have to be everything about. Yeah.
You just said it as well. Like, stop saying you want to go to the D1 school just because your boy said it. There are D2 colleges that are just as good as D1s, and the education's better. If you want to go for education, say that. Just say the things you want. And that all goes back down to all the things we've said. Like, you got to know yourself. And if you know yourself, you know what you want. If you know what you want, say them. Don't
Yeah, you know the
don't try
direction.
don't try to be, because you're literally just prolonging your time before you actually get what you want, because you're not saying what you want. Your coach asks you a question and you say
Mhm.
what he wants you to say. I always tell my kids, if you don't know something, ask me. If you don't ask, I expect you to know it then.
Yeah, I got breakfast with a dude that I trained with a lot in Chicago. We played at Oakland.
Yeah.
David Abador, like
My
really
boy,
good
shout
player.
out.
That's your boy. And we were saying he's sort of in a similar boat.
Yeah.
But we were saying it's like this time warp that you're in where like you're
I just
playing
said
and
that.
everything
Yeah.
around you stands
I
still
just
and you
said
get
that.
out and it's like oh, this is the world. Like, oh,
Crazy.
people don't finish working at 1 o'clock and be able to go do everything.
Exactly.
People don't drink on Sundays and Mondays because that's their day off. Like,
They don't get their house paid for. They don't get
yeah,
their meals paid for.
yeah. You have to buy groceries. Like, yeah,
Bro,
dude, it's weird. It's
that
weird.
and that's going all the way back to what I was saying. Like, play the game, enjoy it, accept the benefits of the game, but be working on something outside of the game that will help you when you leave the game. Like, this idea that you have to worry about plan A, you can't worry about plan B. It's not plan B. It's 1 and 2. Like, this one comes first, and then the second one I have to work on plan 2, because it's sequential, right?
Exactly.
It's not alternative. It's not an alternative plan. It's a sequential plan. Yes, you cannot play until you're 65 years old. You can't. The reality of the situation is most people don't play until they're 25, right? So right now, be cultivating skills in the game of soccer. That would be the perfect solution. You work on skills in soccer that will help you in the future. Or
100%.
you can work on skills that don't have to do with soccer. So then when you're done, then you could do that. Like, if you like to paint, like, work on your painting every single day after
Yeah,
practice.
paint, dude. Yeah.
Like, it's not a big deal, but you got to know what you want. Again, going back to that. And this is what I've been doing with the podcast is, like, I'll come on with you or with a guest. I'll have all these notes. I have a whole page of notes, and I'm doing another podcast just going over the notes because it's too valuable of information that we've just talked about. Too valuable to just sort of brush over, to just brush over, like, each one of these points that we've made today. And all of this stuff will be in the show notes, stuff like that. DJ's story will be in the show notes to give you guys a little bit of point of reference of what we've been talking about. But it's too valuable to just go over once. And I know a lot of you guys listening will not listen to this again. You guys are waiting for the next one. So, yeah, I appreciate you coming on, bro. And I'm sure I'll have you on again because, again, this is too valuable to go over. Yeah, I appreciate it, bro.
No, dude, thank you for having me. It's always good to catch up. Seriously.
Yes, sir. And next time I'm in Chicago, we'll hang out, bro.
Yes.
Are you gonna be in Georgia anytime ever?
Probably not. There's not a lot for me there anymore, man.
No
Even my
worries.
parents are down in Florida.
Yeah, they moved as well. But
Yeah, all my boys are there, but like even
Yeah.
they're starting to get up and get out, like as
Yeah.
stuff comes to fruition for them. So like if I am, I'm gonna be there, and then you can come